Subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Click the bell button and enjoy the latest uploads from our channel.
What's going on, guys? It's your average consumer, and a couple of weeks ago I asked you guys over on Instagram and Twitter what your perfect smartphone would look like, what it'd be made of, what it could do, and thankfully we've got this awesome guy on the team who can make these concept renders so we can see what some of your dream phones would look like in the real world. And first up, we've got this wish list from a man Joshua over on Twitter. So he wanted a completely bezel-less 4K display, SLR quality camera, wireless charging, as well as USB Type-C connectivity, Google OS, which I'm assuming is Android, and he wants this hybrid processor of Snapdragon's 845 chip as well as Apple's A11 Bionic chip, and all that has to go on a 5.5-inch display while still rocking the headphone jack. My man. Not to mention, he also wants a fingerprint scanner as well as Dolby speakers, all on a 4mm thick body. If only this were physically possible, but nonetheless, let's take a look at what it looks like. Right off the bat, this thing is dope. It's completely bezel-less, which gives it an edge-to-edge display, which means you'll feel like you're literally holding whatever content you're watching in your hands, especially since it's got a 4K display. Now, the back's a bit busy with all of the requests made, but here's what's going on. We've got a glass back for wireless charging while still having that USB Type-C port, and we've also got two Dolby speakers in the back. Not the ideal location for speakers, I know, but we had to put it in the back since we have that completely bezel-less display. You'll also find a fingerprint scanner back here, but what's amazing is the SLR quality camera. We decided if we're gonna give it true SLR quality, we gotta give it SLR quality lenses. Now, I know you're not gonna wanna have this big protruding lens whenever you throw this thing in your pocket, so it's going to have a built-in cover so that it can protect the sensor. Detachable lenses for a smartphone would be a really cool thing to see in the future. And with the chipset that this thing is packing, it'll easily be one of the most powerful Android phones on the market. But one thing I think that's pretty interesting about this phone is that you wanted a 3.5mm headphone jack on a 4mm body. That is like so impossible. And I'm telling you guys, we got some really crazy requests. One guy wanted computer parts inside of his smartphone, which is impossible, but we did it anyway. So my man Mike wanted a 4K 144Hz screen with a Ryzen 7 270X processor, SLI GTX 1080 Ti's, 16 gigs of RAM, a 1 gig SSD, a 6-inch bezel-less display, USB Type-C connectivity, a headphone jack, wireless charging, a 100,000 milliamp hour battery, passive cooling, full Windows 10 support, you know, just the basics, he says. Here's what we did. So we had to give Mike a beautiful 6-inch phone with a 4K bezel-less display running at 144 Hz. So if you're gonna be gaming on this thing is gonna look amazing. You also have the USB Type-C port on the bottom, as well as that headphone jack, which I love to see, obviously. And if a 6-inch 4K bezel-less display running at 144 Hz wasn't a marvel on its own, we had to go and throw in two NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti's and SLI, which changes the entire dynamic of this phone. We even threw in that Ryzen 2700X processor. So if you're trying to do gaming, man, you got it, you win. And this thing even has a 100,000 milliamp hour battery. I don't know if Mike's trying to take this thing into space and never come back, but you've got the juice to do it. This thing is just insane. So of course, when you have a body like this, you can't just hold this thing normally. It's like holding a brick. So we even made a little cutout for the back of the display so you can just throw your hand in there. It's got a nice little pouch so you can be comfortable when you're holding it. Now, even conceptualizing this whole thing wasn't easy, and making it work in a form factor that works with a smartphone, not an easy task. But this is what it would look like. You got this whole structure on the back of your phone. Obviously, you got to give it portability and size here if you want all that power. This is obviously a two-handed device. I can't imagine you trying to take selfies, but this is your idea, man. This is what you wanted. And with full Windows 10 support, this is easily the most powerful mobile device ever imagined. Good job. Now moving on, we've got another pretty interesting suggestion coming from Instagram.
The perfect smartphone would be like with a super AMOLED display, most probably with 8GB or 10GB RAM, the iMac 18 core processor with 10GB RAM. The color of the smartphone should not be fixed. There should be an option to change the colors. Like we could change to black, white, blue, green, whatever we want.
Now this one was more of a spec-heavy phone with a ton of crazy specs that we've seen on the iMac Pro and some crazy battery life. But what was interesting in the design aspect was the fact that you wanted to change the colors of the overall phone, which got me thinking. With this kind of phone, with what you're requesting, it would be really cool to see a phone that has a little dial on the side that changes the entire back of the phone so that you can change the color just like you wanted whenever you want. So whenever you feel like switching up the look of your phone, you want to change those colors like you said, all you gotta do is hit that dial and boom, you're able to change between all of the colors that are available. So if you're feeling like blue, black, white, teal, you can do that with just the turn of a dial. Now this one was actually kind of interesting because it got us thinking, what could actually make this work technology-wise? A screen being the back of your phone was the only logical thing that we could think of. But at the end of the day, we decided to just go with magic and computer rendering and boom, that's what we got. Now on the spec side of things, this thing is an absolute beast. We're using iMac Pro parts, so of course it makes sense that this thing would be a monster. So that is actually a very interesting concept. I'd be happy to live to the day where that actually existed. Now we got to see a bunch of your phones, but here's my list, my personal creation on what I think would be the perfect smartphone for me. Now in terms of the overall design, I'd go with the iPhone X's body. I really like the way this thing is, but I would change a little bit here. What I would do is I would change up the sides so that it's a bit flatter instead of as round as it currently is, just so that it can have a bit more grip. And of course, I would change up that display. I would get rid of the notch. Of course, you know I would do that. So it'd be a bezel-less display. I'm fine with a little black border around my screen, not edge to edge. I'm not super crazy about that. So I like how Apple does their screen, just get rid of the notch. And of course, I'm not gonna not have front-facing cameras. And taking a cue from the Vivo Apex, I'd have a pop-up for my camera so that it can have all of its sensors and the lens right there, and have this nice little door that it comes out of. I think that would be really, really cool. Me personally, I don't use my front-facing camera that often at all, so I'm okay with it being tucked away and hidden, especially if that means I'm going to be getting a full display on my phone. Now, one thing about this phone, you'll notice there's no cutouts for speakers or anything like that, and that's because I actually wanted to go with the technology that Sony uses in their TVs. Their newest TV line, I don't believe they have any speakers there. The screen actually vibrates, and that's what creates the sound. I think there might be some phones out there that have that technology as well. I know the Vivo Apex as well also carries that idea in its concept, but I think that's what would make the most sense in terms of an aesthetically pleasing phone that still has a full display and pretty decent sound quality. Like I said, overall, this is the iPhone X's body with a few changes. The camera now is the Google Pixel 2's camera because that is the camera to beat. It's the best smartphone camera on the market right now, so that's what we've got over there. That's the camera I want on my phone. But when you look a little bit lower, something interesting that you'll see is the Apple logo. Now the Apple logo here is going to be RGB backlit so that it can change colors depending on whatever color you want. I think that would look really cool. And I would love for it to double as a fingerprint scanner. Now I am completely fine with Touch ID over Face ID. For me, Touch ID was just always a bit faster, so I want that here as the main source of getting into my phone. And having it on that Apple logo, that's the best place to put it, honestly. Right there on the back, on the logo, it's perfect. Now, of course, you know I'm gonna bring back the headphone jack on my phone, and next to that is actually a USB Type-C port, but I wanted to go Thunderbolt 3 because why not? So if Apple's big thing with their computers is Thunderbolt connectivity, I decided why not bring that over to the phone, and it uses a USB Type-C shape so that I can charge it up with all of the MacBook chargers I have around, so it would just make my life a lot easier. And speaking of charging, it of course would have fast wireless charging. A 4,000 milliamp hour battery would be perfect for me. Now, what makes this phone really special to me is the switch here on the top right corner. With this guy, you'll see that it has a white side, which gives me access to iOS. And when I hit the switch, it goes over to the green side, which gives me Android. Best of both worlds on one device. I think that would be amazing, being able to swap between the two. Call it boot camp, call it whatever you want, but having both OSs on this device so I don't have to carry around two different phones would be amazing. I always carry around an iOS device and an Android device, but having it all in one, that'd be a game changer. But that's what I would want. If you guys can make your own dream phone, let me know with a comment down below. Tell me which one was your favorite. Huge shout out to Jay for making all of the renders. These things were amazing. I'm glad this video could come together. It took weeks and weeks of planning and getting everything right. So huge shout out to the people who submitted their ideas. I really appreciate it. But this was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be the cool guy or girl that gives this video a thumbs up. Definitely gives it a thumbs up. It's a lot of work for Jay, man. But till the next one, guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. Peace.